Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Harakakwadash. I would also like to give a double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone who do well, that have taught me this truth. And I would also like to say a sincere shalom unto the hopeful elect, unto the scattered elect, unto the brothers, the prophets, the men who are out there prophesying, laboring in this truth and in this doctrine. Unto you I say shalom. Yahawashi will bring the last ceasefire. All right. So if you haven't been watching the news, apparently it was some type of agreement of a ceasefire between Iran and America and Israel, and all that shit got scrapped in the first few hours, first few minutes. All right. Where the next day Israel strikes Lebanon, and you got at least 250 people killed and over 1,000 injured. So, but you have to understand, there'll never be a ceasefire as long as Edom, is in rulership. And Yahawashi is going to be the one that's going to take that rulership and take that sword from him. Because as Isaac, Yahawashi gave him that sword. Okay, if you go back to Genesis the 27th chapter, when Isaac blessed Jacob and he blessed Esau. Okay, but Yahawashi is going to bring that last ceasefire where there will be no more wars, because our Lord Yahawashi is going to subdue these nations and and wear the crown, the ultimate crown. All right, of for everlasting rulership. Okay, so we won't have to worry about Esau, reneging on agreement or ceasefire that he made. All right, because the ceasefire, because devil was given the sword, so he can't cease from firing his weapon. All right, have a ceasefire from attacking, from using his blessing, even if he wanted to. Okay, the only way that blessing will be taken from him is when Yahawashi comes back and takes it from him. All right, and you got to understand, Lebanon, Iran, all these nations that are at odds with Israel and America, they've learned their lesson. All right, there will be no ceasefire, because at the end of the day, they don't trust these devils. Okay, neither should you Israelites. All right, our people should learn something from the way Esau is dealing with these nations. Okay, now you think this devil cares about you? All right, the world saw that they didn't give a shit about him 5 years ago, when they coerced everyone into taking that jab, and now they're coming out with reports that we never should have administered that. It wasn't ready. It was this. It was that. But it's too late now. You got damn near majority of the population jabbed up. Okay, but our people continue to trust in this man, trust in this system, trust in the dollar, trust in this economy. Okay, but back to the point. Yahawashi is going to bring that last ceasefire where nations are going to pick up a weapon again. They won't have to. All right. This is Sirach, Ecclesiasticus 12:10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. You never supposed to trust this man. All right. And I don't know why. They thought that Esau would stop attacking. All right. Whether it be Israel, whether it be America, Esau, that's all he knows how to do. Like a hammer, the hammer of the earth is America, and all the hammer knows how to do is hammer. Okay, that's all it knows how to do. Like Esau, all Esau knows how to do is kill, destroy. All right, murder, rape, rob, murder. All right, pillage. That's all they know how to do. All right, but the nations have figured that out. All right, though he humble himself and go crouching, take good heed of him and beware of him. For thou shalt be unto him as thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust, meaning his wickedness, have not been altogether wiped away. So that wickedness, it ain't going nowhere. It ain't never going nowhere. He's still going to be the wicked, whether you believe it or not. And Esau, he'll show you better than he can tell you. All right, because as soon as you turn your back, that's when he gonna stab you in it. All right, and the nations are seeing that. Okay, because it's not a righteous bone in this devil's body. All right, he can't do right. He's accustomed to doing wickedness. All right, this is Psalm 55 in the verse 21. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. That's when they came with the ceasefire. All right, we're going to spare them after Trump threatened to annihilate Iran, all right, and back to the Stone Ages. And then it says, okay, we're going to wait 2 weeks. And then next thing you know, all right, the person, all right, the nation who's really running this thing, running this society, all right, the world, Israel, the small hats, hey, they blast off missiles in a certain parts of Lebanon, killing at least 250 and injuring over 1,000 people. All right, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. That's like I said, that ceasefire, but war was in his heart. The war was in his heart. War is always going to be embedded in this devil's heart as long as he's in existence. Okay, even in the kingdom. Okay, he gonna be beaten. All right, with a rod of iron. All right, but he's still thinking. He better not think a wicked thought against the Israelites. But hey, that's this in this devil's heart. He's still gonna be the wicked in the kingdom. But hey, it's going to get, he's going to pay. He's going to pay severely for his wickedness. Okay? His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. All right? Esau, that's his blessing, the sword. That's all he knows. That's all he knows. Okay? That's, he doesn't know anything but wickedness. Actually, let me grab this. Isaiah 26, I think. Let favor be showed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness, he will deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty of the Lord. And you can show favor to this devil. All right, like trusting him and believing his words that, hey, it's going to be a ceasefire and, everyone's going to be safe. And next thing you know, bang. All right, he just shot off 4 or 5 missiles. All right, ain't going to be no ceasefire. And they're not opening the Strait of Hormuz to America, to America allies, and eventually that blowback from this is going to make the world suffer. All right, and at the end of the day, that's what Esau wants because that ushers in the New World Order. Okay, and that brings us closer to Yahawashi coming back and and taking out these nations, and I'm going to get into that. All right, this is Revelation 6 and verse 4, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. All right, there will be no world peace until the Prince of Peace, Yahawashi, comes back and sets everything in the right order. All right, with the Israelites, he started with himself on top, King David, the 12. Okay, setting up the tabernacle of David. All right, which is the government that's going to rule the earth in righteousness. That he'll rule the whole galaxy in righteousness under the righteous laws, statutes, and commandments of the scriptures, written in the scriptures. All right, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword, and we know that great sword goes back to Genesis 27. That red horse is Esau. Genesis 27, and I'm gonna start at verse 38. Excuse me. Actually, I'll start 34. And then Esau heard the words of his father and cried with a great, exceedingly bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me, also, O my father. And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety, and have taken away thy blessing. And he said, is not he rightfully named Jacob, Yahawah? He have supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he have taken away my blessing. And he said, hast thou reserved the blessing for me? And Esau lied right there. All right, because he despised his birthright. All right, you get emotional ass people that read the Bible, and they say, Jacob stole the blessing. He that wasn't right. No, you go back to the 25th verse, 25th chapter. It says at the end, then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Esau despised the birthright. He never wanted the birthright. Okay? The birthright was never meant for him, but he never wanted it. He never cared about it. It never was he didn't He never wanted it. He had what is the word? Disdain for the birthright. All right, I'm gonna grab this Hebrews 12:16 to back up the scripture I just read in Revelations, not Revelation, keep saying Revelation, Genesis 25. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. He sold the birthright. So back to Genesis 27. Salaki, I'm hopping all over the place, but just you gotta get all the meat off the bone when you're talking about Esau and Jacob. Okay? And Isaac answered and said unto him, Behold, I have made him Lord of all thy brethren, and have given him for servants, and with corn and wine, and I have sustained him. And what shall I do unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above. So meaning he would have dominion for a season. He would have rulership. All right? But it wasn't forever. It wasn't the kingdom of heaven. And by thy sword shalt thou live. Okay? He's living by the sword. And all right, that's the way Esau, hey, that's the way he gets around. That's the way he's able to conquer, through his sword. Okay? And thou shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke off thy neck. All right? And Esau's dominion is almost up. Okay, we're at the tail end of their rulership. All right, and they know it. All right, that's why they're crashing out and trying to conquer and trying to, push their wicked agenda. Okay, but hey, it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work this time. All your witchcraft and philosophies and fake agreements, they've worked in the past, but they're not working this time. This is not the time you win. All right, this is not the time that all the bullshit that you do works. Actually, I went to the wrong scripture. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 18. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. All right, so the saints, starting with Yahawashi, are going to take the kingdom. All right, meaning they're going to have to take it with force. Yahawashi is going to have to take it with force. It says right here in Isaiah 45. No, I think it's 44. Isaiah 44 and where's it at? Hold on, let me look it up real quick. Damn. So I can just type it in here. I know I'm right around here. Isaiah 47 and 3. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered. This is talking about Esau in the last days. Thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, the Redeemer is Yahawashi. The Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. So that's talking about Yahawashi, the Holy One of Israel, the Redeemer. Okay? It's in his name. He is the deliverer. He is the Savior. Okay? He's not going to meet thee as a man. Or he's going to come with this angelic force that's going to, overwhelm the world. Okay? And let's get into some of that about, Yahawashi coming back and the destruction that he's going to cause and how he's going to, like I said, bring that last ceasefire. All right, so I'm back in Revelation 6. And I saw the Lamb open one of the seals, and I heard it as it were a noise of thunder, and one of the four beasts saying, Come see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering to conquer. That's Yahawashi. All right, Yahawashi coming back to conquer. All right. Uh, yep. I got that. So let me jump from there. I'm going to go to Revelations 19. It's a lot in here. Revelations 19, and I'll start at 11. And I saw heaven open, and the white horse, the same white horse in Revelation 6. And he that sat on him was called Faithful and True. It's one of the Lord's titles. And in righteousness he doeth judge and make war. So the Lord's coming back for war. All right. The Christian church will make you think the Lord is coming back to gather his coming back, peaceful and kind to gather his children. Okay. No, he's coming back to make war. As I just read in Isaiah 47 that he will not meet thee as a man, and he is coming back to gather the elect of Israel, but at the same time he's coming back for destruction. He's coming back to get busy. Okay, his eyes were a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. All right, he said he had many crowns. What do those many crowns represent? The many crowns represent these nations that he eventually is going to subdue. All right, and put in subjection and take down. Okay, he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of the Most High. And his armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed with fine linen, white and clean. Damn, I was going to jump down. Actually, let me see. I'll keep reading. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. He treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of the Almighty power. Hey, that's the destruction. That's Yahawashi coming back. Okay, he said he's going to smite the nations. We know what smite means. It means a deadly strike. Okay. And he had his vesture, and he had on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's showing his rank. All right, ain't like a dumb, stupid, ignorant ass nigga Christian say that's talking about a tattoo. No, that's showing his rank. Okay, in ancient world, soldiers wore their rank on their thigh. Okay, let me continue. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great power, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses, and all them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. This is that feast that the fowls of the air are going to have on the destruction here in Babylon mainly, and over there in the Middle East. There's going to be a lot of dead bodies. All right, verse 19. And I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the white horse. That sat on the horse, excuse me. And against his army. So that's the nations ultimately coming to fight against Yahawashi, the kings of the earth, okay, and they're going to get wiped out. It's not even going to be a fight, okay, and we're going to get some more on that to describe that. Hold on, Salakia, I got to deal with these allergies real quick. Let me blow my nose, Salakia. Excuse me. So this is Second Ezra 13:3. And all the prophets had, if all the prophets had visions of the end. All right, some had more in depth, intense visions of the end of Yahawashi coming back and to make war with these nations. But hey, all these visions that the prophet Ezra, John the Revelator had, Zechariah, it was Habakkuk. They were all the same. It was just similar visions. Okay. Second Ezra chapter 13:3, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, and when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, they all burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. And after this I beheld, and lo, they gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. And the sea is talking about the Shemayim, the heavens. That's where Yahawashi is coming from. Okay, and all these men, all these nations came to fight, are going to stop fighting each other and fight Yahawashi and the angels. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it. All right, that's that talking about that chariot that Yahawashi is going to be in, that fathership. And I would have seen the region or place where out the hill was graven, but I could not. So the prophet Ezra couldn't even see the end of this chariot. It was so big. Or he described it as a mountain range. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitudes that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. All right, he just had concentrated fire. All right, that came from Yahawashi and destroyed these armies, and they were all mixed together in blast of fire and flaming breath and great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden an innumerable multitude nothing was perceived but dust and the smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So it was an innumerable multitude, all the armies of the world coming to fight Yahawashi, and they were gone within an instant. All right, like it said, all I could smell, but only dust and the smell of smoke. Afterwards, I saw the same men come down from the mountain and call upon and called unto him another peaceable multitude. Damn, where's the part where it said they durst fight? Oh, here it is. I read that. I just reading so fast. It says, and I beheld. I'm going to do up verse 8. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was a number gathered together to subdue him were so afraid yet durst fight. So they were afraid. They were frightened. They had their B-1, B-2 bombers, all their F-35s, whatever the shit they got in their vault. They're going to bring it all out, all right, to fight against Yahawashi and the angels. It's not going to work, okay? But they're going to fight. The Lord's going to put the spirit on them to fight, okay? That's a lot here. Oh, and after Yahawashi comes back, it's going to be no more need for war, okay? Because Israel is going to rule forever, all right? But these nations, after this destruction, they're not going to want to have the spirit to fight against Yahawashi, the angels, Israel ever again, all right? This is Isaiah 2:1. And it shall come to pass, 2:2, I started 2, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, meaning mountains represent government. So that the mountain of the Lord, the government of Israel, Yasharallah, is going to be established on top of all these different governments, all across the whole world. Okay, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all the nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. That's the ultimate ceasefire. That's the last ceasefire. All right, so if Esau keep popping up, talking about ceasefire, making you think there ain't gonna be no more war or this war's over, that's bullshit. Because as long as this devil is ruling, there's always going to be some form of war. All right, and think about it. In this devil's whole 250-year existence, they haven't been at war for only, I'll say like this, for out of their 250 years, they've been at war every year except for I think 10 or 12 years, probably less than that. All right, so that shows you what Esau, that's his MO, his war. It's his sword, living by the sword. Okay? So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying unto the hopeful elect, and I would like to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Harakat Kwadash, Shalom.